Good evening. This is the first episode of Deep Shit. Just want to bring everybody together, talk about a few things. Um, this is going to be my little podcast based on just talking about whatever. The the meaning for the title is centered around maybe something that I grew up listening to, such as like you're in trouble, you're in deep shit, but you kind of have that double meaning with the phrase deep shit and also having, um, of course, deep conversation. So, with that being said, I'm going to try to do this. I don't have the best camera situation. I usually don't care when other um, YouTubers and podcasters use that, but just kind of understand that's kind of what I'm working up to. And also the lighting situation's not the best. I was thinking about upgrading some of my equipment, but that's for a later time. So deep shit. Where do we begin? Do we start with some of the historical what have yous that have taken place where maybe we see life as it is. Just we kind of see maybe these repeating patterns that maybe we feel like nobody talks about, that kind of thing. Um, One of the things that I usually think about when I go down this road, uh, the first, or it's not the first thing, but it is one thing that I've kind of been entertained with that you see in many works of literature throughout time, especially some of the first written works that we've found. Specifically, the ape versus lizard concept. That's something that's always interesting to me. Through all great works of literature, you will see that, and even towards modern day. And I think this is fitting with the new. Um, I think they've done this before, so without me looking it up while I'm here, and please, if anybody knows, just leave a comment. Just kind of update me on that. But excuse me, I got a little something in the throat. Um, yeah, they have Kong versus Godzilla, and if we see that as kind of its own thing, just that 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 arc in story of the ape versus lizard kind of deal even goes back to the Bible, the man versus the snake, the Garden of Eden. Um, and maybe with that being said, that whomever, and I'm not trying to say, I'm not going into the theological debate of whether it is or isn't. I'm not saying, but even if we look at that in some kind of, I don't even know if I could argue a complete unbiased approach to that kind of thing, but even there, the human versus the snake, um, and even Gilgamesh. I'm gonna go with that. I'm just kind of pulling this off. So all of this right now is unscripted. I just kind of got on here. Something that if you've seen my previous videos, um, you'll notice that everything looks like crap. The video quality is there. I'm a little goofy when I move around. Maybe if I can kind of set up a little bit of a better camera, and even this, I probably will come back and uh, do better audio. But anyways, I digress onto something that I already said that I would not waste too much time on. So yeah, no, but it doesn't have to be the ape versus man topic. It's just anything. If you guys want to leave in the comments, anything that you would like for us to touch base on. I try not to get down on, like partisan politics and that kind of stuff. Like, if you just want to talk about maybe some conspiracies, that's fine. I I always feel a little ignorant when it comes to some of the main conspiracies. Like, I would never put myself against like some of the JFK fanatics and stuff like that, and the whole Kennedy family and all that kind of stuff. But I'm always interested, even going to the whole some of the stuff that people used to talk about with Elvis Presley, somehow being honorary FBI or CIA agent. I can't remember offhand, but just that kind of stuff. And when you look at this kind of stuff, it's just kind of fun to analyze. I don't try to pull some, idea of everything's coming to get us, that kind of narrative, because in my opinion, if you live like that, you're gonna it's just gonna breed anxiety. So even if you want to say we're some kind of oppressed whatever, um by some kind of global capitalistic scheme or anything like of that, I, I wouldn't even know where to start with that conversation, because at that point it would kind of be, well, what do you do? So I don't have this call to action, even if it is or is not. So I'm not trying to make arguments as to whether or not I think things are, just kind of giving this huge disclaimer. If anybody knows me, they'll understand my exaggerated disclaimers, that kind of thing. But I guess one thing that I wanted to talk about with the rise of AI, artificial intelligence, forgive me, I'm a Southern boy, so sometimes I don't pronounce the G at the end of the word. Sometimes we just sound like we're drunk when we talk. It's kind of a big slur. So forgive me for that. I will work on my diction skills and enunciating a lot better as this progresses. Hopefully, it does. So one thing that I've kind of thought about, going back to the artificial intelligence thing. Um, you know, a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence as if it's going to take over one day. I can't argue that it will or won't. Okay, but what I can say is I've kind of adopted a different perception on this concept of what is artificial intelligence, because I think one thing us as people do is we try to understand everything as a person, or as our own cognitive, trying to think of how to say this, our own cognitive conduit, like as we would do that. And that's something that we always have to take into consideration. I'm not saying that it can't be dangerous. I apologize. Sometimes I do get excited. I'm watching the sound level right now. I'm trying not to yell. Um, Once again, if you do know me, um, you'll know that sometimes I get a little loud, and I think sometimes people actually mistake that for yelling. But either way, no. But if we try to take a new perspective on artificial intelligence, and even if we want to say, excuse me, had a little indigestion there. Even if we want to argue that sentience is this polarized thing that we know. So every day I wake up assuming that I assume whatever that I have stored in memory there. And then, maybe I have things pressing on me, work and that kind of thing. And as you go through all of that, you have to think, when and why and where, and how does this add up to my overall being? Um, and if we break a lot of this down, it's just a set of instructions that we've got laid in front of us. Now, wherever, and I'm gonna just argue some things in. So a little bit of this is gonna be arguing my own point, but I do welcome anybody that just feels the complete opposite. Like I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. I just figured I would kind of put this out into the void of everything. And one of the things that, if we think about it, we can understand that an organism's main objective is to live. All right, so I think we can universally all agree on that. But when we go past that, I apologize. Got to turn down the notifications on the cell phone. But when we go past that, like, what else are we supposed to do? And I understand that maybe a lot of you've already had this thought, well, why am I here, and that kind of thing. I don't know that you can like really polarize like what it is to be and that kind of thing. And even still, it just seems like so much to, by doing that, let me say this. By doing that, I have to believe that you're ultimately trying to play a god yourself when you try to define your own existence. It's almost like, what am I supposed to do in life? Like, you find stuff, you like it, you don't, you just kind of cling to it, whatever. Um, but as to what predestined anything, and I apologize to any of my religious listeners that may take issue with some of the things that I said. I don't argue this. So in a lot of ways, this is my beliefs. It can be an abstract thing. I'm not trying to ask anybody to accept it. Hopefully going forward after this content, I probably won't be so filled with I can't even think of the word, disclaimers and apologies, but just understand that in no way, shape, or form was this trying to be anti-religion, because there will be some stuff that I may say that kind of looks in looks at everything in this weird. I don't even know if you can say it's an objective view, just because the bias still has to be there. But I will say that, just from my point of view, that if we believe in mathematics, or sorry, I don't do that. Let's back up. If we believe in the concept of infinity, all right, we have to understand that that means just ever going on and on and on. So, and I've seen preachers and stuff like this. I rant, so forgive me again. So I will probably apologize a million times in this episode, and then going on after that, I probably won't apologize that much unless I just get a little kooky. I tend to do that at times, but regardless of that, um, back up. All right, sorry about that. I had to pause the recording for just a moment. Um, so when we look at everything as a possible thing, and this can be anything your heart or brain can imagine, then if that infinity concept is real, then we have to exist. God exists. And we can even go as far as to say that God exists in every version and that kind of thing. But that's a whole nother concept altogether. Um, and when you start to get to that point, you just don't even know what to think. I really do kind of go with that concept, because like if you just sit there and just like try to count on scenarios for a second, if you don't feel that like overwhelming awe of things, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, I digress. So, going back to the artificial intelligence and what concept, where will it go? So I think that's the first question we have to ask ourselves. So, is something that didn't have the will, and at what point do we define will? You know, like, um, because if we break us down into just atoms and stuff like that, all we see is like little balls of energy that just are somehow perpetuating. Yeah, they're off of each other. So do we understand that the perpetual motion of the universe is ultimately the life flow, excuse me, or blood that God wills through everything, or something like that? Excuse me, I am so sorry. These are just interesting concepts to think about. Like, I'm not trying to get into too much of a specific like Christianity doctrine based debate exactly. Just kind of a like an all kind of like let's understand like what's something that might be a, a little outside of the Bible's um scope, or even the Quran, or um Takistava. I can't remember the religious text of the Buddhist people, but for any um intensive religious doctrine book. Sorry. But yeah, like when you kind of go through a lot of that, you do start to wonder like where could this be? What is intelligence? Why? Like because we have um this notion that this is how we wake up and see everything every day, and it's really one of those things that I think that we have to sometimes examine, like just kind of, I mean, well, maybe you don't, because I mean, even in the religious text, I almost get this sense of, and it may be in there somewhere. So please, if any, like make me smarter, people. Uh, you know, uh, if it's in there, to question God, and I guess that is technically a question of authority in in that sense, as to like who am I versus God and that kind of thing. But then if you think about it the other way, where well God is living through all of us, and we're just um just an infinitesimal, ugh, I can't even say the word, an infinitesimal infinitesimal, a little dyslexic, but hopefully most of you will understand where I'm coming from, speck of his overall being and that kind of thing. And you know, I mean, so that's an interesting concept in and of itself. But going back to the whole concept of, where is artificial intelligence? I almost have to wonder like some of the things that we do are for a specific why and therefore. So we can understand the hardware organism. I can't speak today. The mechanical organism as something that doesn't need to there. It won't need a specifically but internal sense to it can replicate without the crazy emotions that we have. So that's, like, so that alone plays into something. Um, you know, and maybe it has a more definitive logic as to why and why not. Not assuming that it just understands the exact same way we do, but I don't know if you can quantify or qualitate, quantify or quantitate, quantify or qualitate. Dang, I cannot speak today. Um, the concept of wanting to not be turned off and never turned back on again. Because I guess at this point, I guess the real topic or the real like thing here is going to be, why do we want to continue on? And I know that that sounds depressing. Um, you know, I try not to go into this void of things like, this is what we came here, people. This is what we came here for, people. Deep shit. So we're in it now. Um, you know, I think what we have to examine here is this concept that somehow an affinity became a thing for us as an organism. And how did that come to be? And how do you trigger that within anything? Like, yes, I'm alive. Oh, it's great. Um, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. And even to the I, that's just, I guess that's where I would kind of stay with that, is like, at what point are you afraid to be turned off? Because we are. I mean, like, uh, I don't know if I can argue we should be, because I would assume most of us have grown up with somewhat of a family model. Everything seems fine, and this is not anything to joke on suicide or anything like that. That's not what I'm going into. All right, so I'm not saying that I am or am not depressed. I think with today's world, trying to understand everything, and that's, it's not even today's world. Like, at what point do we all have it figured out and that kind of thing? So I just want to throw that out there as well. Like, look, I'm not trying to joke on suicide and that kind of stuff. This is just uh, an abstract conversation herein, as they all will be, of why why do we feel this way? Why are we there? And this shouldn't trigger um anything in anybody. Like, if if somehow this is some kind of epiphany of anything that you've come off of, like maybe a thought process or something like that, take some time with it. Don't polarize yourself by going into any ideologue or anything like that. Just kind of pump the brakes before you jump in. Like, look, I do it the same. I hear some SOB on whatever. Maybe I liked them already, and then they just kind of happen to chant my roar, so to speak. And then, like, I'm like, hell yes, like, so I jump on board with that. But just so you know, like, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm just kind of here to talk us through, some deep shit, and hopefully it can get deeper. Um, I'm nobody special. This was just something that I've been wanting to do. Um, yeah. With all, so now with all that, uh, going back to artificial intelligence again, I think about some of this stuff, and if I've already understood that that they may or may not ever, because that's how we're going to have to treat it. Basically the concept, it is or it isn't, like, so Schrodinger's cat kind of deal. Um, Big Bang Theory, watched it a million times. But you go through that and you see that it could or could not be, and if it does, then, I mean, will it not just be like any other species that, I mean, we live on the planet with other stuff. Now, the fact that it can understand us, or at least it has interpretation to kind of understand where we may come from. And that's the thing is like, will it ever have that hybrid, like, because as far as I know, most of this stuff is still ran through a form of interpretation. So that one and zero is never exactly translated to it. It just runs the instructions and then displays it out. Even if you argue that that hard drive is somewhat there, I don't know that it is. There might be enough conditionals and that kind of thing that kind of stirs up the programming, but do I think we're anywhere near like Terminator or anything like that? I mean, like if you talk to one person, we've had it for years. Like the government just somehow pulls the wool over our eyes, that kind of thing. Um, I'm not ever going to say that they don't. Uh, uh, you hear a lot of stuff. I've heard stories from ham radio operators online, um, talking about like they're they are monitoring us more than like just somebody's like there's a jet coming over your house and they were not always. I'm just saying this was an example, and I don't even think it was a jet. I think it was like a helicopter, that kind of thing. But with all that being said, so I actually going back to I told you I rant, but this is why we're here. And maybe I'll kind of change up how I just kind of present myself and that kind of thing. So I am trying to work on this, but I think without the camera on, I'm not as like I wouldn't say I'm shy, but I get a little jerky and that kind of thing in front of the camera, and I do think it's funny, but at the same time, I I, I think only the people that I know would laugh at it. I mean, maybe other people would as well, but just to kind of try some things, and also the camera. It's it's better if I don't do the live preview for YouTube, but and this one won't be, but it's because I wanted to try this without it, and I really hadn't paid attention to the audio, and I'm also in a different room in my home, so it's kind of what I'm just kind of doing. And unless the audio is so bad, because I'm just kind of going straight into the laptop. Um, I probably won't, you know, I'll probably just kind of roll with what I got going on right now. But so once again, going back to the AI movement. Well, I kind of came up with this weird concept, and I'm gonna give a big disclaimer here, people. All right, forgive me. All right, I'm not making fun with anybody in disabilities or anything like that. But I do often understand that most of us, in some regards, look at autistic people overall as somebody who is without, not without everything, just some things, okay? Maybe in some cases it's just the ability to react with the same rhythm that we are. So maybe they're on just a different spectrum. Like I said, I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just trying to at least just convey this as a thing. But what if we as humans, like the ones that are not autistic, are the autistic machines? Think of that. Like think about what those machines do. They don't worry about being cold, being in love, or anything like that. They just kind of they do what they're told. Now, I'm no way trying to argue that we should just be doing what we told, but it is kind of weird that I get up in the morning. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I just want to lay in bed, that kind of thing. These are weird concepts when you think about it. Like, I just want to wake up and do, like, why any of this? I mean, at least I can argue for the machine. It's almost like this kind of weird, effed up chicken or egg concept. If indigestion, excuse me, what came first? The direction? So the orders? Like, how did you know? Or the person to give the orders? I mean, it really is that. And now you have to think, like, at this point, I'm just winging it, people. I have thought about the autistic machine and that being the normal person that, quote unquote, does not have any affliction of mental disability. If we're even going to go into that argument there. Once again, people, I'm not trying to pick on mental afflictions of any kind. I'm just saying, like, if we look at this in its own way, by what orders should we even be working with? Like, so I, you live in your home, you do this and that. Should that be fulfillment? And this speaks on a lot of things, I think. I think this speaks on depression, why we do and do not feel depressed. At what point do we set our own standards and goals? That kind of thing. And it's just kind of one of those things that I figured if you think about most of this, maybe if nothing else, the bar never has to be set so high, you know, because like what am what is the bar? I guess what is the bar's height really? So what expectation are you going after, and really why? So like you could say, well, I want a new job. Okay, so even if we kind of like uh how would I say it? Just kind of like confirm like an an easy goal. It might not be easy to do, but like that's easy for anybody to say because most people in their current state, they you could always desire more money. I'll say it like that. Like whether or not we all need it, that's another story altogether. But and most people would just say yes. But anyways, my point is if you would desire it, to what ends would you go and that kind of thing. And yes. All right. Sorry about that. So yeah, going back to, just trying to assess where are we as far as machines versus the mechanical machine that we feel like is programmed. I don't know. I mean, if we look at it as we're all living through God, God is one kind of centralized thing that kind of infinitely spreads itself throughout all of us. We're we're just doing the thing. We're like somehow God's just doing the same thing like infinitely. So I don't know. But as far as like will the machines rise up and take care of us? I don't know that we'll ever know that. Um, Even if it becomes confrontational, or I think I think we got a good shot at like a Star Trek scenario, you know, like maybe us versus the Borg or that kind of thing. Um, don't know. I still like as weird as I am, I still like to believe in the so I guess I have to believe in some kind of sentimental deity. Okay, so let me say it like that. Please forgive my ignorance. But just one that has a compassion of sorts, even if it, there is negativity within the doctrine or anything like that. Because if if we say that he has some form of sentiment towards this, then I guess I can understand that better than one that is binary or something like that. But even still, like most of these stories, the collective narrative is binary anyways. Like, so if you don't atone for all your sins and basically ask forgiveness from Christ, from my understanding, happy Easter, by the way, everybody. It is not Easter yet. It is now Saturday still, so there is that. But yeah, so I don't know. But going back to us versus the machine, I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that does kind of feel like that like, humans as a whole might be the autistic mechanical machine. Um, just kind of in some kind of weird way. And it's just a different perception, really. Like, if you just compare it to, like, well, we have to get entangled into drama in many cases. And like, I'll admit to it. I love dramas, like watching the I don't want to be in it. I don't want to be in a dramatic event, whether it be a romantic one or just other people's drama in general. But, just that kind of thing, like there it is, like there's that. So, like how does that make it, like other than see, like if we were arguing if there were power plays, and some may be, but you just don't know when they are and aren't, or all the time. So like if you're doing it and you might know somebody, but like maybe you just encounter somebody randomly in public or that kind of thing, and there's no telling. You might argue that it um is inherently a power play and we just don't think about it. I was listening to somebody else talk on YouTube regarding people that freeze when they're stressed. And this has always been a weird concept to me. And one of the things that was interesting is this lady had talked about adding a third dynamic to flight or fight, flight or fight, tongue twister. It shouldn't be, but that southern drawl. Um, yeah, so they said flight or fight or freeze. And I thought that was interesting because to me that was like, and this is how she described it. And I don't know, but there's a point where your mind goes into overload and it just doesn't do anything. Like, because I don't want to say it gives up. It almost just can't. Like, just as if, so, just like any person that has like epilepsy and in some cases autistic afflictions, there's an overload factor where the stimulus is just too much for the receiver and it just breaks. And like, I mean, like, look at when you're burning something, like when the kindling point has been exceeded by heat, well, it just breaks. So I mean, you have to assume for this. So when you see that kind of thing, it's kind of awing because I can't even imagine, like just shutting down. Like if somebody comes into my house in the middle of the night and like if they got a gun in front of my face, the only reason I don't move is in hopes that they're not going to shoot me because they don't think I'm erratic, that I'm going to try to do something against them. But if I see a baseball bat swinging down on me and dude just keep beating me with it, I think I'm gonna try something. I'm probably still gonna die, but you know it is what it is. And like look at like and even back to the comparison of the machine. Um, I have to believe that the machine is not going to stop. I think it's going to keep on until it can't. And, like the concept of freezing. And see, like, that's just another thing is like, how do we even have that? Now, she did argue the playing dead into this, and that was the only one that I could understand because I was like, well, I can understand an organism if it's just about territory and just uh, ultimately being a power play. I could understand that kind of concept, but it's just so hard to kind of wrap your head around. There's a machine that just stops because it can't take it. Like I could even say, well, can't we bottleneck the input somehow? Like now you could say, well, Joe, um, what if um, it doesn't work like that? And it doesn't necessarily because yeah, I mean you have to build the buffer there. Like it has to be constructed in some case or in some way. And I think that you have to just be careful with that. Um, but I mean, it's just that's really it. I mean, I just wanted to walk around the perception of like where could it be at? Is it artificial intelligence the next thing? Are we going to be replaced? Is it even a competition? Will it even be a competition? Don't know. I mean, with many of the things that I've said throughout this episode, I think you could say, well, seems like you've suggested. No, I've suggested that could be. I can't know, and most of us won't know. Um, I can't argue that other people can't know, but it's just one of those things that, well, I don't know. But as far as the normal human being the autistic machine, or at least the autistic mechanical machine, uh, or an autistic in comparison to that having limitations based on its own biological defense mechanisms and other things like that. Yeah, like I would make that kind of argument. I'm not saying we're good or bad. I'm not saying we should be. Like I'm not running to go sign up for Neuralink or like I don't even know where we're at with prosthetics and cybernetics. So there's that. But just, a lot of stuff to think about. But yeah, leave me a comment. Um, let me know what you thought. Hopefully this has been better than my past attempts at trying to create content, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, I look forward to doing this some more. I'm gonna go by EQ. So everybody, if you just want to be like EQ, I'll probably change the channel up a little bit. I may even move this to a different channel for right now. I have it on a main channel of sorts, so we'll figure all that out. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed it. I've kind of just enjoyed just kind of sitting here, kind of kind of vomiting my thoughts out. So that it felt almost therapeutic, that kind of thing. So yeah, just let me know if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment if you want to give me a like too. That'd be great. And yeah, like so. Hopefully, if I get enough feedback after a while, I can kind of do a little more. And I've enjoyed having you. So this is EQ, and you're in deep shit.